call the meeting back to order, and before we get started, we have some guests. I have Laura, my sister-in-law, and her friend Heidi from Newfoundland, Baleen, and she's a newly elected councillor representing that community, so we'd just like to welcome her here. She wanted to come and see what we do up around this part of the world.
Where's Baleen?
It's on the Avalon Peninsula, about 15 minutes outside of St. John's,
Which way?
north.
He's used to live in Newfoundland.
Oh,
Anyway, I never heard of that.
no, it's, Portugal Coast, St. Phillips.
Towards Winterton, that one.
Yeah. Pauline, Hooch Cove.
I only went online ever so briefly this morning, just so I had some clue.
What's
And I know it has a population of 412, and it's the smallest incorporated town down there.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's try to be on our best behavior.
Yeah.
We're not terribly good at it. It helps that it's all live streamed all across the world.
Now you're on the map.
Yeah.
So we are on 7.3 quarterly report, financial information services.
Okay, good morning, council.
Yeah, right. You've been here since we got it.
So this is the quarterly report for the finance department. It's a little bit leaner than a normal quarterly report because we do have the year-end financials still technically under audit. So we'll have a little more detailed financial results for the whole organization a little later. This is more just operational within the department type stuff. So to start with the Q4 highlights from the prior year. So we completed a tax sale on March 29th. That was one that was, well, delayed a number of times for a number of reasons, but we finally managed to complete it successfully. 6 properties were sold at auction for total proceeds of $82,900, which represented 98.2% of the assessed market value of those properties that were sold. So I would consider that very successful. And also I'd say that given the recent successes of some other Nova Scotia municipalities with tax sales by tender, and considering that this tax sale had to be rescheduled 3 times due to weather and COVID, after being delayed due to COVID initially, we may want to look at moving away from in-person auctions. And so we'll be looking at the options available to us for tax sale by tender. And that'll be something that comes back to you at a later date to consider.
Okay.
The 22-23 budget was passed on April 14th. I think you were all there for that, so I don't need to talk too much about that one.
Yeah.
We've onboarded a new financial analyst who you all met, I think, a year and a half ago now, it feels like. Well, no, just a few months she's been on board. Shannon's been wonderful.
I don't see her in the building all that often.
She's very busy, keeps her head down, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah,
On board means hired?
yeah, onboarded with being hired and trained and
Yeah, we met her. She was in the visit.
Oh, yeah, I just didn't know the word on board.
Oh, on board, what that meant.
it's kind of like overboard, but totally different.
We keep her on the Tanco ferry.
That's when you're terminated.
You're overboard.
You're overboard.
Walking the-
That's a legal opinion.
An update on the water supply loans. So we had 6 new loans issued in 21-22 fiscal year for a total of $47,357. That brings the active loans up to 16, and there were 5 others since the inception of the bylaw that have been completed. So the outstanding loan balances on those 16 loans as at March 31st was $117,000. So $117,193.
How are those collected?
It's set up through a monthly payment, so pre-authorized payments that they set up when they first joined the program. Yeah.
Have there been any defaults on them?
No, and if there were, it gets rolled into their taxes owed. So it would be, yeah, it would be redeemable. I mean, if someone didn't pay it and then weren't paying their taxes, it would fall into the category of like properties that may go to tax sale to recoup our money. So there is very, very little risk on these loans for us. Looking through the 22-23 priorities for Q1 and 2, I see that this report was actually prepared a few weeks back, and you can see that 2 of the items on here we've already had in front of you, one this morning. So we're still finalizing the year-end close and audit. Substantially complete. We're just letting the auditors do their last couple checks and reviews and asking some final questions. Once they've signed off on it, we will bring back.
Yeah, they're out of the building there.
They haven't seen
Yep,
it.
and it's very few and simple questions that I tend to be getting. I don't think there's anything significant outstanding. It's just a matter of letting them finish their stuff. And then we'll have more detailed financial results for you for full organization.
So if we don't see you take you in handcuffs, we're all right.
Well, I mean, there
They'll
are things
tell us.
before that might be a sign of problem, but no, we're all right.
Okay.
Sorry.
A non-consolidated financial statement is a provincial requirement, so that's something that will be unaudited, but it's a requirement for submission to the province. It's something that I guess we haven't been doing the last couple of years, and I guess that is consistent with a number of municipalities around the province that have not been filing these, and the province has not been following up. So I was reminded that they are going to be looking into that, and we will be preparing them. So that's because we do fund-based accounting. We'll have to prepare the audited financial statements are external statements. They don't cover transfers between reserves, right? Because those are not actual external transactions. Whereas the non-consolidated would be a set of financial statements for each of the funds within our organization. So you would see those transfers, for example. And that'll be coming to you later, probably late summer is when you might see those. So amending bylaw 72, private street maintenance, that's actually already done. Amending bylaw 74, tax exemptions for nonprofits. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with this one, but we'll be discussing that earlier this morning.
I remember.
There may be some more discussions to come on that one. We'll see. And then we'll do the annual amendment for policy P25 for the low income tax exemption. That'll be the annual update to the thresholds and the allowable exemptions. That'll be coming to you within the next couple of months. We're also continuing some work on the purchase order module and other procurement policy and procedure revisions, which coincidentally is the next item on the agenda today. So we'll have some more detail on that following. As well as doing some work on the investment policy, cash flow forecast, and investment strategy. So interest rates are going up quite quickly, so there may be some opportunity for us to be getting a better return on our reserve balances. We're just about finished our reserve review right now, going through and making sure we're reconciling all the balances and that they're all accurate and caught up to date, which is really the foundation for that cash flow and investment decision-making improvements, I guess, or efficiencies. So the council priorities for finance, so the procurement strategy, that's something we'll discuss more in the next item here. We have much more detail on that. That is ongoing. The investment policy, I just sort of mentioned about the cash flow forecasts and the reserve balance reconciliations that we're doing to enable that. The tax exemption bylaw review is something that you have seen today. Tax sale options report, as I mentioned about the potential of moving towards a tax sale by tender rather than in person, something that we're working on. And the streetlight area rates, so documenting the streetlight practices and rationale, that is ongoing and still on our radar.
We aren't very good at that.
So the financial results in a normal quarterly report, this is where you would see the program level information.
Sorry.
We're not supposed to sing and play guitars until after.
Is that your hand? Is that your hand? All right. So yeah, there will be more detailed financial results provided once we're through all the audit procedures. I figured I'd give an update on the deed transfer tax, since that was something that was an item of note in the last few quarters, and I do have the information for that. The actual received revenue for the deed transfer tax for the year was, and that's a typo, that shouldn't say 22-23, that should say 21-22. Was $2,364,892. That is a new record for the third straight year. It's a record high,
Wow.
continuing to spike. As directed by council, we have set aside all of that money into the newly established development fund for use in infrastructure development in the future. And then you can just see the chart of the last 10 or 11 years of deed transfer tax.
It's gone up a lot.
So that's invested now.
Yes.
Or how do you invest that? Is this maybe we should, don't need that discussion now, but is it
Right, so that'll come in with the investment strategy stuff, the cash flow, the reserve reconciliation. Currently, it has been moved into a reserve. So it's sitting in reserve. It is earning a nominal amount of interest at the moment. That's part of the work we're doing on the cash flow reserve reconciliation stuff. So to invest that generally into GICs.
But can we get it into something higher in the?
That's what he's trying to sort of,
It doesn't take long to do that, though.
Yeah, well,
Maybe it does with municipal stuff, but.
I mean, in theory, it would just be a matter of setting up a transfer and calling the bank and saying buy a GIC. However, there's some work we need to do first to make sure that that's all. I mean, some parts of it are easier than others, but the needs of that cash and the timing of when we will need it needs to be specifically reviewed and assessed so that we know what time frame we can invest on, because that will affect the returns that we get.
Sure, just from a short term while you're getting that information.
Yeah, we could do that. That would have to come back to council, I believe, yeah, for anything above, well, no, for short term, it wouldn't have to go to council, actually. That could be approved by the board directly for anything under a year.
It seems to me there's a lot of money to be getting nothing on where we could be getting.
Well, we're not getting nothing. We're getting, it is less than 1% right now. So again, with interest, of course, the time and the dollar both impact that. So yes, in theory, we're losing a little bit on the time, but to be most efficient and effective with our strategy, we need to have a better understanding of everything. We can't just,
Maybe be ready for the July hike for 3/4 and then put some money.
yeah, and there needs to be some, there's a lot in the investment policy, right? So our investments have flexibility and there's more than just this funding, right? There's all the other reserves.
I understand. I don't want to get into people. I just curious to know how we're at.
I will certainly be bringing more detailed information on all this too in the near future. Yeah. So, yes, I mean, yeah. And there's even more than that.
it's always another resource, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments around the quarterly finance report before we move on?
Well,
So I think I'm next as well. So 7.4 is this is a presentation on the procurement and purchasing and procurement program. Just to give you an update as to where we're at on the various pieces of this, what's happening, what has happened, what will happen. Core municipal value is to maintain a high level of fiscal responsibility, and this comes from various parts of the 2013 strategic plan, saying we will do this by improving our procurement processes and supplier relationships, as well as the 2021 strategic priorities framework, which states our governance and administration processes demonstrate a commitment to efficient and fiscally sustainable service delivery.
Yeah.
So what is happening? So we're in the process of updating and improving our purchasing and procurement practices and policy. Many of these changes were initially presented as part of the 21-22 operating budget, and the work continues to be ongoing. Today's presentation intended to provide some information on what we've done so far, what we're doing now, and what's left to do. So the course forward is, so right now we're working on implementing the purchase order module. We're working on implementing an e-procurement platform and increasing our use of purchasing groups. And then following that, there will be some work to do on P cards, which is essentially a replacement for our corporate credit cards that we currently use. And then a policy on
P card anyway.
A P card is very similar to a credit card, just a little more ability to restrict categories of usage, and it's just a little bit more tailored to organizational use rather than personal use. Very, very functionally the same thing as a credit card, just with a little bit more functionality for allowing us to control the usage.
As long as we're regular, they'll take it.
So they could employee could purchase hardware, but it wouldn't be eligible to purchase airfare. The card would not be accepted. So it gives the team members real flexibility to acquire things they need quickly. But it also provides that assurance and controls.
Okay, but sometimes I need to buy the plane ticket with mom.
So individual cards can have
Well,
different
different
thresholds and
controls.
criteria set. So you can set transaction limits, you can set credit limits, you can set product category, merchant category limits, and individually by card. So there's just a lot more functionality available to us that allows us to control the use of credit cards more specifically to the needs that we have.
So Tim, just if I can, so the purchasing groups, have we done that with municipalities or is this something you're looking to do, I guess?
So there is some that we already use. For example, we buy some office supplies through rural municipalities of Alberta is the name of the purchasing group, although they function outside of just Alberta these days. There's also another one called Kinetic GPO that we use for some stuff. There's a newer one called Canoe that we're looking to expand our use of them. They seem to have a lot of value to offer to us, and we're looking at enabling that benefit by using them. And I will have some more stuff on this as we get through.
Dan, was Canoe the presentation you had at the
Yes.
Federation meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, and I shared the slide deck with Tim and Dan.
We were quite impressed with the presentation at the conference.
Yeah, as was I attended one of their online sessions where they presented. There seemed to be a lot of opportunities for us to benefit there.
Glad to see that.
Yeah. You have to save us time and resources.
For sure.
Yeah, and money.
And,
Yeah. And just to clarify, the policy update is next. And I know that may seem backwards in some respects. However, a lot of the details of the pieces that go into the policy need to be sorted out functionally before we can write the policy. However, all of the changes that we are undergoing before we get to that point are completely compliant with the existing policy. The policy just happens to be, it's rather vague in general. And so we're looking at making more specific changes. And so that will come to you kind of at the end of the process. There are a few pieces of it that we would bring to you. If there's something that we would want your input before implementing the change, we would definitely bring that to you. And I can give some examples a little bit as I get to that section of the presentation here today.
Yeah.
So the first step thing, the purchase order module. So what is this? It is the implementing of the use of purchase orders to authorize the purchase of goods and services. So this will be a change from the current practice of approving invoices when they're received as an invoice. So this is after the goods and services received, and going forward, we would be using a purchase order that would have to be approved under the appropriate authority before we're issuing the order to send. And that'll improve a number of things. So better tracking the spending against the budget. We'll know what we've committed because we have those open purchase orders, rather than simply relying on the knowledge of the people who have made those orders. We'll have documentation to rely on. So that will enable us to provide more timely financial results. So for quarterly updates, year-end, things like that. Gives better control over spending authorities and limits. Because, well, if we're approving at an invoice level, an invoice gets sent after a good or service has been provided. And if something were outside of an authority, it's a little bit more difficult to say that, well, no, that's not going to happen because it has already happened. Right? So we're looking to move the authority process up front rather than after the fact.
And it's a check because the PO should match the invoice.
Absolutely, that's the next point. There's more certainty over the accuracy of invoices. So we'll do what's known as a three-way match. So you would match the purchase order quantities and prices to the delivery slip to the invoice and make sure that they all match. Which means that then it's just an administrative process to pay the invoice if everything matches properly, rather than having to go back to somebody to approve the expense. It enables us to pay our suppliers quicker. It enables us to have better and quicker understanding of our financial information. So the concerns around this would be it's a change from established process. So we're going to have to go through some change management and training internally and externally. So those of us who are authorized to spend money have to understand the new process and how it works. And our vendors are going to have to understand how our new process works and how it will impact them. So there are certain types of activities of purchasing that is not ideally suited to purchase orders. So low value vendors without the ability to issue an actual invoice. Invoices delivered without us initiating it. So various provincial organizations occasionally send us an invoice. We won't have a purchase order for those. So there will be processes built in tandem with this. In particular, the credit card / P card for those low value certain ones there. As well as a process for like a check requisition request for if we have to pay something, but it wasn't something that could have had a purchase order. So there will kind of be those three that work together to cover all purchasing. But the purchase order module is by far the biggest change and biggest benefit, to be honest. So far, what have we done? The PO module integration with the financial system has been tested. So currently, purchase orders are being used for all purchases within the information services department. And we're
We're gonna
so
do recreation and stuff like that next, so it'll be more interesting.
No, this is true.
not everybody finds purchasing controls exciting. I tell my kids the story every night before bed. It puts them to sleep.
Good job.
They love it, I think. So what's going on now is, finance, information services, and procurement staff, we're all working to refine the process. So on ordering, receiving, and payment, that means also identifying likely exceptions and defining processes that we would deal with those going forward. So for example, if an invoice comes in and it doesn't match the quantity that we ordered or that was received, or the price is different, what do we do, right? It's easy when it's only one department doing it with a couple invoices here and there. We say, okay, go talk to the person and fix it. But when we get this all rolled out, we need to have a more firm process that's gonna cover that type of thing. And then also working with budget owners to determine appropriate authorities and limits. And that's something that'll come back to you, council, before we implement, to say, here's what we're proposing for the delegation of authority limits for various types of purchases. It'll include details around things like, is it within budget? Yes. Is it below this amount? Yes. If it's above budget, who needs to approve that spend? At what point does it have to go up to Dan or back to council? All those different things will be defined. And we'll have that for you before implementing. So the next steps will be to finalize those processes, educate the budget owners and other affected staff of the new process, inform vendors of the change, and to implement the purchase order module for all departments to use. The next piece of this process is the e-procurement platform. So this is a web-based application for posting, receiving, and evaluating electronic bids, managing related contracts, and tracking supplier performance. So the benefits of this are to ensure a consistent procurement process across all departments. Business rules and best practices can be built into the system and configured to meet all of our specific requirements. And it allocates more time to strategic procurement activities and less time on the administrative tasks of enabling that process. So some concerns would be that some suppliers may need initial support with registration and with the e-bidding process. And so to mitigate that, the vendor that we're working with has robust training materials that are available for both internal users and external users that we can provide. We will also have direct support from a staff member, Dan Pittman, sitting here in the back, who's doing a lot of the work on this, is very keen on being that supportive guy. So if anybody needs help, they just need to reach out, and even if it's just sitting with them and saying, what do you want me to enter here, and doing it for them, we'll do what it takes to get people on board so that nobody's left behind from this process. Also, a concern is just the time required to configure the new system while continuing to support current manual process. So I'm happy to see Dan here with us today, because I know he is exceptionally busy with a number of high priority procurement activities that are still going on under the old process, while working behind the scenes to establish the processes and workflows that will go into the new process once we get that up and running. So what we have done so far, so reviewed e-procurement platform providers, 5 different providers were reviewed. 2 were identified as being most relevant to the needs of our organization. And we selected a vendor, bids and tenders, based on the price through a Canoe contract. So they were, of the 2 that provided specifically what we needed, they were significantly cheaper, and they're like, it's $3,500 a year. It's a very nominal cost. What's going on now? So we have contracted bids and tenders, and we're working on finalizing the implementation plan, getting that all set up so it's ready when we're ready to go live. The next steps would be to roll out the system. So that's creating the templates, configure the settings, identifying the staff that require training and training them, and promoting the e-procurement service to the supplier community. The first tender to use this system is likely to be in, this says late June or early July. I'm going to cross off that late June since that's just this week.
That's not far away.
It'll likely be early July when we're ready to do the first actual use of this. Also there's a DocuSign add-on capability. So a number of organizations are moving towards e-signatures being required. And so we're going to build that functionality in to provide that ability for us to use an e-sign function.
I'm still signing the checks myself.
Yes, yeah. This is not a mandated change. It's an option that will be available to us. Your hand is still very valuable. I can attest that you personally sign a number of checks that I also personally sign.
Oh, yeah, sometimes you can't even remember how to spell my name.
We couldn't use DocuSign for checks anyway, could you?
I don't.
No, it wouldn't be for
No.
checks. It would be for contracts. Yes. The next item here would be the purchasing groups. So this is these are nonprofit organizations that work as a collaboration of various organizations to centralize certain procurement functions. For example, Canoe or Kinetic GPO. The benefits there are process efficiency and bulk discounts. And the concerns would be that maximizing benefits of using buying groups while ensuring compliance with policies and legislation. So just because they offer something doesn't mean it's necessarily right for us or compliant with our needs. So we do need to make sure that we're not just going full tilt, but we're assessing it properly and doing things as they make sense and align with our needs and requirements. So what have we done so far? So far we have a minimal use of purchasing groups with Canoe and Kinetic GPO, and as I mentioned, the rural municipalities of Alberta. And right now we're exploring the benefits of that expanded use. I think they're looking at some procurement activities through the infrastructure department for a couple purchases of equipment. And next steps would be further use of Canoe in areas determined to be beneficial. And I've included some snippets that you may recognize from the presentation if you all saw that. On the left-hand side here, you see kind of the traditional 11-step process for procurement activity. Going from identifying the need all the way down to receiving the equipment. And the use of this purchasing group really cuts out those middle steps. So we go straight from researching the options to issuing the PO. They've already done the work around speccing, getting contract pricing, writing a tender, advertising, bid opening, bid evaluation, and awarding. So they're essentially similar to a standing offer for already the low bidder. And as you can see, they are compliant with tendering processes. They're a cooperative organization that works on behalf of a number of groups and municipalities in particular. And they are a credible, well-established organization that we can rely on. P-cards is a replacement for corporate credit cards. The benefits are an integration with our accounting software and more detailed controls available, as we discussed a little earlier. And will likely involve transitioning to a new provider, as our current credit card provider does not offer P-cards to organizations of our size. And so we're looking at other vendors, and there will likely be a transition process there. What we have done so far, we've done preliminary research of the benefits, options, and potential providers. Right now, we're gathering information on the organizational needs, the specifics, and contacting vendors to get a better understanding of products available. I've been in contact with 2 or 3 different organizations just to get the introduction to what they offer and the benefits and the features, so that when we're ready to sit down and assess which one best aligns with our needs, we'll have that information available. The next steps: identify a more robust list of potential providers, always looking for other options to get those bits of information from. Assess the options provided, select a provider, and then to implement that transition. And then once we're through all that, we would update the policy to reflect all these changes a little more specifically, rather than the general way that they're currently covered under our policy. So this would be the culmination of all the other areas of work in this process. We would revise procurement policy PO4 to capture changes identified through the other phases of this process. The benefits would be to update to better reflect and align with government procurement best practices, and revised policy will specifically address all categories of procurement activity. Concerns would be that there will be a specialized external review recommended. We are estimating about $2,000 for that to happen. It is already budgeted. What we've done so far is compared our policy against other recently revised municipal policies to determine potential gaps. Oh, this says set, we have not yet set the approval thresholds, we're still working on that, sorry, that's a mistake. But we're working on those thresholds for the PO module, which again will be an item that we would bring back to council before implementing, because that's something I think critical that will require your input. What's going on now, we're gathering policy update needs based on the other ongoing items discussed and in the other sections of this presentation. And the next steps would be confirming and further identifying policy gaps and change requirements in preparation for undertaking the formal revision of the policy. Today's purchasing and procurement program procedures and policy presentation have been brought to you by the letter P. I told you, I was reading this to my kids. I said,
How it ends.
and does anybody have any questions?
Do you have any questions that you haven't already asked? Thank you.
A lot of work. Very well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
Chad, you up? Are you?
Lead us off.
We don't usually have back-to-back quarterly reports, but it's your lucky day today. So similar to Tim's presentation, where most of the content of this report is focused on last year. And so we have some stats and some data and some information just to provide you an update. And if there's any questions on some of the things that are happening within community development and recreation. So we want to jump to the next slide. So in terms of planning, we actually have a workshop coming up right after this meeting. So we're looking forward to that and having a chat with FBM. And that's of course all part of our village plan review. So it's be great to have that work continue. And looking forward to chatting with the FBM staff. Chester Hills development, I think everyone's familiar with that. And so our public meeting has taken place with that. And so our staff are working with a developer on a development agreement, so that work continues.
Public meeting or public information?
Public information meeting, yeah, that was scheduled to take place. Yeah. And we're also working on the Sherbrooke Lake rezone, and so there's a report being prepared, and that'll come to you actually next week. So it was earlier this week, it was at the Municipal Planning Advisory that Sharon mentioned earlier, so that will be coming to you next week for some discussion and implementation of that first time, obviously implementing that new lakeside. So uniform signage project is underway. I'm happy to report that we have had a lot of interest in the last little while. So we have about 10 businesses that have we've been working with that have either paid or in the process of purchasing signs. And so so the new signs have been down near Exit 6. The initial signs have gone up. And so as businesses sign on, we have to order that signage, and so that will all be placed once it arrives. And so in the interim, we're going to have some crossover where the existing signs will be removed, and so that will take place shortly. If the business owners don't remove them, then we'll be doing it to clean those.
So Jed, how was the feedback with this, with the business owners to this policy?
I think very good to date. There's been a couple that haven't fit within the allowable businesses, so they're not tourism related and they're not eligible. So there's been a little bit of feedback related to that, but overall we haven't had much in terms of negative feedback.
I've never had a call.
So
There you go. Nice audit, looks good.
Yeah. And summer student is hired. I think you all met John already. He's already been in for a presentation to you. Yeah. On the development side, so we have some stats or subdivision stats for the year, and we have kind of gone back a few years, so you can kind of look at the trends. And so this is approved subdivisions as well. So this doesn't include numbers of subdivision files that are active that are being worked on. So so there's some numbers for you. Then, of course, on the development side, the development permits issued. And so back at budget time, we had some discussion around this. And so we are in the process of hiring additional staff to help deal with some of the bottlenecks that we've had on the development side. Been unsuccessful hiring to date, but we continue to work on recruiting and filling that position to help deal with the 262 applications that we had in this past year. So we still continue to have really strong numbers, and so that is obviously putting lots of pressure on staff, both on the frontline staff dealing with the those applicants and all those frontline questions that come in, as well as the staff that are processing the applications themselves.
I get a couple calls a week from people wanting me to speed it up somehow.
Yeah, and we do as well, and we do our best. We have folks on lists, and we take through and we work through them as quickly as possible. But there is definitely some thought on it.
Just out of curiosity, I know development permits and all that. Staff are shared with Mahone Bay.
Mhm.
Do we know how many permits are issued for Mahone Bay as well, to get a sense of the time it's taking?
Yeah, I did include that on here. I did on a couple of other slides, but I didn't on here. I can provide those numbers.
Just
to you.
curious to know.
Yeah, absolutely, because that is a consideration. That was the intent of including some of the numbers with building services. So that is just, don't forget, by the way, that we do provide that service in the town of Mahone Bay, and those numbers are incorporated as well. So, yeah, so I can share those as well. I did neglect to include those on these particular slides.
Just for comparison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, actually, yeah, and just, I just kind of zoned out for a second there, but this will give me the opportunity to ask the question. Tell me if it's not the right time. You mentioned that we're having some challenges filling some of like building our capacity in terms of staffing. Because I remember, and I know this is the first or last quarter or last year's we're capturing. But in the budget this year, we did talk about that in terms of our building official capacity and the building official training and so on.
Mhm.
So have we done any job recruitment? Because after Pam will send us the copy of the ads that we're going out and so on. So where are we with that?
Yeah, so that's that in reference to our development officer position. So we currently have that is open. So that's a new position that was created specifically to assist with the pressures on development. And so that position is open and has been advertised for about a little over a month now, and we have been unsuccessful to fill it so far. So we'll continue to
Been
work.
unsuccessful to fill it. I'm thinking, okay, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna ask, right? So, yeah.
Any applications?
None that were suitable. Yeah.
Oh, no.
What is the skill set you're looking for? What do they have to have?
Yeah, so I can share the full job description of the job ad with you, and so there is a very specific skill set. And
If
so
you do that, rather than.
Absolutely.
I don't, maybe it's been sent out, I haven't seen it.
I can't remember if I saw it or not.
Just out of curiosity.
It'll be good enough.
Yes, on
And we have the development officer, but we also have budgeted to have a building official training. Is that
Yeah.
ad been posted?
no, that has not yet. So there's some work that needs to be done internally to determine exactly what that position looks like. So if you remember, we had talked about trying to determine how we would be able to use, in this instance, the discussion was to hire a tradesperson and then to train them up to be a building official. And so obviously we would need to create a position where we'd be able to bring them in. And so perhaps working with our construction operations department to create that position and figure out how they would fit into our organization or operations until we are successfully had them make their way through that training to become a building official. So that is work that needs to be done yet. Yeah.
Okay.
So the next slide is our building services, and it's just providing some stats for you related to building permits issued. So you can see that our numbers are up slightly from last year, and of course those numbers are up significantly from previous years, as is the total number of inspections. And so we reported that we do have a part-time building official, Jim Holt, that is assisting, and he's really helping to alleviate that pressure that was previously all on Brent's shoulders. So it's really great to have him there to be able to provide that service so that we can respond timely to those inspection requests that come in.
already up to 41 million, 42.
Yeah, and so the construction value, so once applications come in, part of the application process, we ask for the construction value. And it's, some of our fees are based on that as well. And so that's where some of those numbers come from as part of tallying that from each of the applications.
Jeff, let me just say, like, going back to the staffing problem. So what's the biggest, I guess, I don't understand, just because I'm not sure, but what's the biggest hurdle in a development permit that takes the longest time? Is there a certain area of that permit process?
So each one is unique,
Okay.
and each property and each development is different. And so some of them are faster and some of them take more time.
Okay.
So it just depends. And then I think in my presentation, I mentioned that we also have the challenges of folks fairly regularly not completing their application. So we get incomplete applications, so they come in and then we have to have that communication back and forth, so, and to request the additional information before the reviews and permits can be completed. So that's a significant challenge as well as just the back and forth with developers and owners on, you know, trying to get applications that are complete. So there's several layers of
So it's not one
challenges.
size fits all sort of, yeah, yeah, okay, thank you.
There's also other organizations, provincial departments, transportation.
That's right.
and,
That are involved,
that can get
okay.
involved.
Yeah.
So that's a good explanation, so I know people don't want to hear that, you know,
No,
want it done fast, but yeah, that adds some clarity to it, for me, actually.
yeah,
Well, the-
half the time they don't have to build it properly.
But the delays, us from the development perspective, the delays are obscene in some cases, really. And that's why we're hiring people. But I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not-
taking way too
The
long.
wait time is simply not acceptable. We're trying to deal with it. We can't say to people anything but, we're trying to deal with it, but it's not acceptable, the delays.
You know, they're having trouble with your contractors, trying to schedule contractors and all that stuff.
It's not a good situation. I don't think we have to take it seriously because it is serious.
So, absolutely, we're trying to fix it.
Oh, I know, I'm not saying, but it's, you don't want to be on set if this is not a serious issue.
Oh, no.
You're getting a call, we're all
All
getting
the
a
time.
call.
Yeah.
Likely losing projects.
Well, people are having trouble completing them because of the not knowing when to hire the contractor, and then it takes longer, and then the contractor's busy, and then they can't do it.
No, it's not a good situation.
Okay,
So the next slide is our bylaw enforcement, nothing in particular that I wanted to point out here, just that bylaw is busy. We get a fair number of complaints that come in over the course of the year. And it's great, and that we haven't had Brendan on for a full year yet, but I know he's definitely making an impact, and we've been able to close the loop on a lot of files and really be very proactive in those complaints that come in. So
Yeah,
so there's-
we talked about this with them, we're having a session on, because our bylaw is complaint based.
Mhm.
We're not proactive or anything. There's a lot of violations out there that are obvious that we're just not dealing with.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that I've asked that we bring and discuss, because I think simply a complaint-based system is not adequate. We have to have a little more proactive.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I just want to raise it again. I raised it before, and hopefully we get some discussion on it.
And I think actually they've stepped up some of the fire inspections in the municipality, which hadn't been done.
oh, we were way behind in that.
Yeah, we are. So that's actually our next slide.
Sorry.
So, yeah, so we did have some gaps in our fire inspection service. So we had a gap in a period where we didn't have staff. And there was also inspections that weren't being completed during COVID, not going into buildings during some of those closure periods. So we definitely were behind. So we are in the process of trying to get back on track. And so the goals, as you can see on that slide, per month is 10 re-inspections, 10 new inspections. And then, depending on the special occasion letters that require that fire inspection prior to those going out. And so we're taking good strides now and to try and get back on track. So there's lots of work to be done. But I'm feeling good that we're getting back on track compared to where we were just a few months ago. And that flows right into animal control. So our numbers are on there, and it's interesting. Animal control, again, is definitely complaint based, and that's how we respond to those issues. And it's amazing how consistent from one year to the next. Our numbers are fairly steady, even going back previous years. You can see all the numbers that are provided for you there. And of course, a lot of the instances that we deal with are dogs specific, and a few other ones that come up, but the majority is related to dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs running at large.
Lots of dogs running at large.
What's the difference between a minor dog incident and a major dog? What, is there
Bite, probably.
a bite? Is it a bite? Would that be it? Yeah.
That would, I think that would be the need.
Yeah. Okay, now into the fun part, recreation.
And the recreation, okay. So we were able to have our cut and run. So we've been trying for 3 years to have our 10th anniversary, and so we finally were able to do that. So we're really pleased to have over 200 participants. We almost had 50 volunteers, so it takes a lot of people to pull off an event like that. But it went off. It was great, and we had a really great day. And the photo of the shirts there, that was one of our participants, has come to every run for 10 years. So we brought all his 10 shirts with him to kind of put up on display. So it was a great day, and I mentioned to the rec committee, we had a really a big contingent, I think over 20 folks from Bonnie and Lee Farm that came out, and of course we set up a special route for them, and it was pretty fantastic to present awards and medals to that group. So really great community piece to that, as well as bringing in visitors from outside as well. Next slide is just a few stats from over the past year. Just some of the items that we keep track of are numbers of things such as your photocopy jobs and bandstand bookings, all those good things. So happy to answer any questions about those. Photo is just the check presentation for the youth sponsorship, excuse me, that we presented earlier this year. And the play boxes, so there's a grant funding that we received for play boxes, so they're going to be rolled out a little bit later this summer. So it's essentially a toy box for our playground. So it's to encourage families and children.
Where will we locate those?
So there are 7 different ones. I don't have the list right
That's
here,
all right.
but a couple of the schools, Gold River Park is one. We have one in New Ross, so we have to try to spread them out through it. And so we're looking forward to that, and not a unique idea to us. There are a few other municipalities that are taking under this project and have had some really great success with them. So we're looking forward to see what will happen with that.
Do we take them down each night, or?
No, it stays out. They stay out, and the equipment stays out. And then if the equipment does go missing, we do have to replenish it.
Okay.
And what we've found, or what has been reported from some other towns and municipalities, is that families actually bring equipment to the playground and they actually put things in. So we have a little bit of a nice community project. So yes, we're looking forward to see how that.
Well, the numbers on the right. April 1 to March 31st.
Yes.
Just picnic in the park, for example, 11 weeks, 1,650. What's the 1,650? How many people that attended?
Just the number of people that would have attended overall. Yes.
So how do you measure those?
So we do a quick head count. Obviously, it's not perfect. It's not down to a science.
I was thinking that would be low. I thought it would be more than that.
No, so we've averaged about between around 250.
Yeah, that would make it more than that.
That would be, but it depends on who the performer is. Some nights there's a lower attendance,
Weather.
and some
Yeah,
nights there's
that's the number of people attending.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it is an estimate. Yeah. So on the next slide, we're doing some training for, speaking of EDI early on, we were doing some training for all of our, offering training for our leaders and facilitators and ensure that they're creating welcoming environments to all folks that attend our program. So just a heads up for you that that's happening. Southwest Island donation. So I think everyone is already aware that that's happened. And in this edition of the Explore Life, we actually put an article, because the information course is now public. So there's information there around the Southwest Island donation. If anybody happens to ask you, then you can kind of refer them.
Do we have an extra copy of that? Or
I do have some extra copies.
what
Yeah.
you made? I did make one.
It is just going out, so yeah, really.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's in there. I got mine yesterday.
Yeah, so they're just going in mailboxes this week.
That's bizarre.
Washington Shore, what are you looking at?
Because we got theirs on the day that it opened up on the 21st. I was talking to the postmaster, because I was at the post office first thing Tuesday, and she couldn't believe it either, that it actually came out to New Ross, not 7 days delayed, because, she tracks it, so couldn't quite believe it.
Yeah, ideally they'd go out to everybody on the exact same day, but in reality,
What's going on?
there's some delays in which post offices are able to get them out. So that also includes, of course, our summer programs. We have our summer staff are all in place, and so looking forward to a great busy summer with our summer students. Next one is South Shore Connect. So just a quick highlight. I always like to give those numbers. This is a year tally. So we had over 100,000 hits on the records on South Shore Connect, which is a pretty phenomenal number. And so what I provided there for you was just the top 10 hits within the records for the municipality of Chester. So you can see a lot of people are looking for trails, pools, those types of things. So those are some of the items that the general public are searching for when they go into South Shore Connect. Next is Pro Kids. So obviously, Pro Kids numbers are down a little bit, and that's still the impact of COVID and not as many community activities happening. But I did put in the stats there for April to May, and you can see that our numbers are up this year. And so I anticipate that when we get to this time next year, that our applications will most likely be up over 200 and kind of heading up to that trend, and kind of that 250 is where we had been for a few years. So yes, we're anticipating to get a little bit back to normal in terms of the pressure on our Pro Kids and Pro Kids budget. So lots of really
Kids is where we
great support.
help people who can't afford to be involved.
Any sport and recreation activities. Yeah, with program registration and equipment fees. And lastly, just to wrap up our plan for open space, so we're moving into our construction phase, and of course we have that budgeted this year. And so starting actually with the Han property, the trail flow is actually on site, starting to cut out some of the trails on that property. And so we'll be working through those over the summer, and we'll be able to keep you updated as to how things are going, or if any of you are interested in having specific updates on those properties, then feel free to contact myself or Gord anytime, and I can let you know how that's going. And I think that's about it, unless anybody has any questions.
Anyone? Thank you, Jed. Okay. Be easier if you did.
I'm looking forward to this all week.
Alan, I just found something in my book that I intended to add to the agenda, but I forgot, I just mentioned it, I just found it.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, actually, and just reminding me when Chad was here, I just want to discuss the width of the trail.
Width of the trail.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Could you get your truck on?
You're not
Well-
supposed to get your truck on.
Well, no, and I think, yeah. Well, I think
Those side by
Well,
side things are like a truck.
well, the thing with it is when they made that legislation, they did it 20 years ago, whatever, but the widths, they envisioned ATVs. Not these people are spending $30,000 for these machines.
Yeah.
It makes it, so I don't know if there's something we can write to the, anyway, I wanted to bring it up for discussion.
Okay, I'll
Thank
edit it. I just added it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Man.
Infrastructure and operations, wastewater collection design work.
Yes, morning, council. Thank you for your kind attention. It's regarding the RFP for the lift station design. The recommended motion is that council award the lift station design to CBCL Limited for $160,126 plus HST. The Department of Infrastructure and Operations issued a request for proposal seeking the services of a qualified firm of individuals to design and administer the contract documents for upgrades to 3 existing lift stations and construction of 1 new lift station and approximately 500 linear meters of new force main. The initial project of wastewater treatment upgrades for the Chester Village wastewater treatment plant was approved by council on April 11th, 2022. This ICIP application, which includes upgrades to 3 lift stations and 1 force main renewal, 1 new lift station and 1 new force main, and an upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant has been submitted. We are hoping to have a decision by late summer and early fall. This project was also recommended in the XP wastewater study, which was published or released earlier this year. The province has previously stressed the importance of shovel-ready projects when applying for the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Programme. The Infrastructure and Operations team has issued an RFP for the design, construction, inspection and commissioning of the lift stations and force mains. By awarding this design now, we will be shovel-ready to start the construction of the same in Q3 of this year. There is a risk that any work completed prior to an application approval would not be eligible for funding if the municipality of Chester was awarded the ICIP grant. And really what that says is that as we stand at the moment, the design phase, which is this RFP, we are requesting funding in order to conduct that design work, and we may not be able to recover that through the
Because we did it
ICIP
before we got the grant.
in order to be shovel ready, which was a stipulation for the actual larger grants application, if that's clear. So the options, option A is direct staff to award the contract to CBCL Limited at the cost of $160,126 plus HST. Or option B, direct staff to delay the award until the ICIP grant has been decided. It should be noted that requirements for the ICIP funding application is that the MSC project being shovel ready, delaying the award for the design the design stage may jeopardize the larger ICIP funding a bit.
It's a small piece of a big puzzle.
It is, yes, it's just getting everything in sequence so we're ready.
Yeah,
You need to.
if anybody want to move that we,
Now I have some questions.
oh, good.
You didn't think I was from that?
No, I didn't think that simple.
No, I know a couple of these gone through the last little while. I'm just looking at the information we have, and it seems to be a little scant, so I have a couple of questions. I don't know this company. I know they've vetted and everything is good there. How many other proposals did we have, or how many other tenders did we have?
Can I refer you to Freddie to join me to? Who can share some-
Two.
Two others, or just two?
Just two total.
So is this the lowest? Is this the lowest part?
Yes, the lowest price. Yeah, but the price was worth 30% of the technical evaluation of the proposal.
Okay, and that evaluation is done by who?
Now we did that internally, 3 different evaluators.
Okay. What is the total sort of cost of the project estimate? No, we don't know that yet. Put a number in.
I think that with the treatment plan, there's several million on the top of my head. I believe it's over 7. But I have to get back to you on that.
No, it's okay.
Just sorry, Councillor Wells, just so the full ICIP bid, of which this constitutes a part of, is just shy of $17 million in total. But there are other projects within that bid, larger bid.
Yeah, of course, that 16, 17 million is subject to increasing with the pricing increases.
It would be subject to, yeah, exactly.
Would you have expected more bids than that, or is that sort of the norm when you're getting these type of projects?
Currently, it seems to be the trend that we're getting very few bids. It's 2, 3 tops, where we are inviting several qualified companies to bid on them, but we're receiving 2 or 3 at the moment. And we can surmise that it's purely on the basis of their own capacity or their commitments that they already have.
Oh, sorry, Andre.
No, so I'll jump in since we're talking about this. I'm glad actually that Derek, you mentioned some of these things, so I'll just make a few comments on it because we're new to one another. One thing I've noticed about the latest few awards that we've made on proposal is that staff have offered council very little information. So when we're making the decision whether to award, then I would expect as a councillor to see more than just the amount and the proponent. I would want, so if there are multiple proponents that have made submission, then I would want to at least see the scoring, because the proposal you give us to award, we don't even know if that was the one that has scored the best. So then what decision are you really asking us to make? I find in this report that information is lacking.
Yeah, there's no oversight by us on this. It's just a rubber stamp, but I think we have more of a rubber stamp. We have a little more information.
Well, we could see the scoring process, there's no problem with that, but I mean, I might trust them to evaluate.
Not suggesting for a minute, I don't need it. I think we as oversight body need a little more information.
Yeah, lots of times we have in the past, on occasion at least, seen the names of the companies that actually submitted and the scoring. And then the recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's important. Otherwise, what decision are we really making? There is no decision, because we already know we want to do it. Repeating back to us is not, that forms most of your report. We already know.
There's no big
that.
problem having that
The part that we
information.
didn't know is the part that didn't provide.
Is the mechanics of it.
Yes.
Yeah. No, understood.
Yeah, so we did have, it was a while ago that Dan Pittman presented on the information that council would receive at the end of a procurement process versus the front end of a procurement process. So we'll check with Dan and try, and we used to have more information that is, I guess, appropriate, careful with the word I choose, or acceptable to reveal at the end of a procurement process. So we could probably dig out that presentation again and make sure that we're all aware of what's in order to be included in a review. I just don't recall if it included listing all the companies' names and their scoring and how detailed that information was.
So in a public procurement process.
Yeah.
If you are bidding that work, it's public.
Yeah, I don't.
And when I read through this, I'm glad you mentioned it. I was thinking about mentioning it too, but I found this to be inadequate. I have no real problem with the award, with the recommendation. I noticed it on the last one as well. But I would like to see a more fulsome report that explains. Otherwise, all we're doing is saying, yes, we wanted to do this project,
Yeah. these
which
are
we already
possible.
knew. So I've said
Well,
that.
Dan can review it, but I don't really see an issue with knowing who all bid and what their scores were.
I want to make a comment on another thing that was touched on, and that is the low number of proposals. Now, this, I can say, with my experience as not a non-lay person in this field, that this is actually a very good project. Kind of project that most engineering companies would like to do because it's a nice project.
Yeah.
Clean, good. The low number of proposals is a reflection on, as you said, a very busy environment for. So if we wish, so for example, 5 years ago, had this exact RFP gone out, I would suspect we probably would have had 6, 7, 8, 9 proponents that would have bid this. Now we have 2. Because I think there's so much private sector work right now that when you bid private sector work, you may have a developer that is doing maybe a big development, and there's a number of lift stations, roads and sewers and gutter and all that stuff. And the assumption is that those proponents are competent. You don't have to make a lot of proof, and there's not a lot of weighting on the competency of your engineering provider. So you go and you meet with within your company with your team, you come up with an assessment of what that project's worth, and you submit it. It doesn't take very long to do. And then you have a 1 in 5 or whatever shot of getting that work. That process is a lot quicker than going through an onerous process where 70% of the weighting may be on team compositions and all that stuff. And I understand there's some sort of there's an importance there. And we have to be careful not to dismiss the qualifications of those proponents. But I would say that if we wish, if it's something to think about, if you wish to have more proponents bid, you have to lower the barrier in some way, because it takes a lot of effort to prepare a proposal. And if you have a 1 in 5 chance of getting it, and you know you can make proposals to the private sector, and it takes a fraction of the time and you have the same risk, what would you do? That's what's happening.
I'm concerned with the subjective and the objective. Only 30% goes to price. 70%, these are other factors.
Yeah.
I'd like to know a little more about what those other factors are and how do we evaluate them?
Well, we can have that done, but it's council who set that policy.
Well, maybe, I don't know the policy,
Well, the scoring system we approved.
that's one we approved.
No, that's not accurate. Each project has its staff determine what priorities they want to make. They should. We allow them to make that judgment, and that's within their purview, and I agree with that. This is just an open discussion. If we wish to have more proponents, maybe I should think about what market forces we have right now. So like, if you have a simple job that might be, say, designing sidewalks, for example, you may want to put scoring that pricing as a higher percentage, because you don't need a deep, huge well of experience to design sidewalk. But if you're let's say you have a community like Hubbards and you want to site a new treatment plant, which is going to be very important, it's going to have ramifications for generations. You may want to have the most experienced engineers you can get, in which case maybe scoring is only worth, the pricing is only worth 10%. So, and staff have to be careful, and there's always a gray area, and I think that we rely on their experience to come up with that, and I just sort of trust that. But also, you have to be cognizant that this is a feedback mechanism. If we find continuously that we're getting only 1, 2, staff may wish to think about that.
Yeah, how do we get more people?
And, we can't offer any suggestions as council if we don't see it in the report we get. Because, we're only seeing one company with one number. So that's all I have to say on the matter. I don't really have a problem with this. The only one comment I have is that I was wondering, sorry, I guess this is probably my third comment, but is that I believe the overall project budget is 16, 17 million or something like that. And this is one component of it. There are 3 lift stations. One is a new one in Force Main, which is this award, but there are also upgrades to the other 2. What's included? How much work is involved in upgrading the other 2? Is that a big engineering project? Or
Yeah, one of course is for the Stanford Lake area, the new lift station in Force Main. 2 of the other ones, lift station upgrades is fairly minor. We roughly know through the wastewater study what pumps need to be replaced, so largely those 2 stay the same. But the third one would be the Pig Loop Road lift station. There's gonna be a lot of work and design involved with that, a lot of site supervision. So
is that this, or is it?
That's that as well, yeah.
Okay, that's in here.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so what I was trying to figure out is normally we would see like engineering fees to be in that 10% of a project value, which aligns with this cost. Good. Assuming that the remainder of the project doesn't have a lot of other engineering burden with. If you're thinking that there's going to be, then I would say that this cost may be a little on the high side, because
That's probably, that cost there for that work, that seems really reasonable, in my opinion. The next factor for this ICIP award was the Chester wastewater treatment plant. And that's a lot of design, a lot of specialized work in that, like you said. And that's why we took it out of that one, because there are experts in a lot of companies that do really good at the lift stations and force mains. But we want to have that really good company that can go and look at our existing plant, see what they can do to upgrade that for future flows and really do a good job. And with our application, we mentioned that that was a project for construction next year and design this year. So that should get us in that shovel ready once that's out there and get people awarded, ready to go.
Okay.
And we hope that we'd be, allowing design over the winter, that we get more consulting companies interested.
Okay.
The policy itself, it sets a council policy. Where do I find that?
I don't know. It's not, I don't have it with me.
So our
I just know that we
procurement
discussed.
policy is kind of the umbrella framework under which staff operate.
So I'd like to get it, I'm trying to educate myself on that.
Yes, I know.
But the 30% price still seems to me to be a low number. I If that's a Norman industry, I don't understand this, it's not my industry. I'd like to sort of see how they do the evaluation, just so I.
Well, we can get the copy.
The criteria are public, that they were shared with the bidders.
I had to get that. I
Yeah.
don't want to get for anything, I just want to get, I just want to.
We can get you a copy.
Yeah.
Any other questions on? I mean, we need to do the work.
So can I make a motion to? approve?
Yes.
That's someone.
Second discussion.
One thing.
Oh, sorry.
The fourth. I think that it's not only, I think it's quite likely we won't recover this from the ICF. So I think saying that we may not, I think we have to be real honest with ourselves here at this table, that this, not only that we may not, it's likely we won't.
No.
So I
But if
just
we
want to
don't do
make
the
that
work, we
clear.
won't get the grant either. You know,
I accept that. I just want to make that clarity here.
That was clear.
I agree. Yeah. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought it was gonna be easy.
Okay, flag raising application. Pride flag, Lunenburg County flag to be raised August 16th to the 21st. That seems to be relatively,
Easy.
well, you scared to say it is, but seems like it.
You need a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Second. I'm assuming the motion is to fly.
Flag, yeah, sorry.
Discussion? All
Sorry.
those in favor?
Sorry.
Opposed, motion is
I'm
carried.
getting numb here, buddy.
Well, it's been a long morning.
Still a ways to go.
Good morning, hello. I'll try to be quick. I'm here today with our proposed scope for our business retention and expansion program, which I'm going to call BRE, just for simplicity through its presentation. So BRE, the concept of BRE is simple. It's learn from your businesses what their needs are and then develop priorities to help address those concerns and needs of the business community. The benefit is great of doing a BRE program. And the biggest benefit is that it can be our best investment attraction tool, our best tool for growth. And that's because it's like business development 101. You focus on your existing clients and they're going to give you 80% of your business. It's the same with BRE. You focus on your existing businesses and 80% of your job growth will occur from that based on past studies. And also they'll be the best referral for us to new businesses as a great place to do business as a community. So there are a number of visitation methods that are typically used when it comes to BRE programs, and I've outlined 4 of them in the report. The one that I'm recommending is the paid consultant approach, and I'm recommending that for a couple of reasons. One of them is capacity. Really successful BRE programs have dedicated resources that are doing this for us either continuously or for a specified period of time. And because we have multiple projects and priorities, we'd have to put those on the back burner while we get this done. So I think that a paid consultant approach is more efficient. And also timeliness is a big factor as to why I would recommend this, is because far too often with EDO-led approaches, by the time we get data, the data is out of date in order to do anything with it. So that was another big part of why I'm trying to expedite this. And also, I do feel it's more efficient, this approach, because the one-on-one, the way we have it set up is that upfront, we'll survey 90 to 100 businesses through telephone and email surveys. And from there, green and red flag businesses, so the ones that are poised for growth or the ones that are at risk of downsizing, leaving, closing altogether, are the ones that get the face-to-face time. And I think those are the businesses that need it most. I can put a third reason too that I didn't have in the report, but it's the data analysis. So this isn't numbers, like the information that we're getting from these surveys is quantitative. So to be able to analyze that properly, really wanted to have an expertise doing that. So a consultant who's done this with other communities, I think will be really valuable in terms of getting the right output for that information that's gathered. So in terms of the scope of work, I have that outlined as well, but just briefly, communication is going to be key. We'll have a lot of work put into the communication plan up front. We want businesses to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, the benefits of participating. The questionnaire design as well, having a consultant who has done this in several communities, they should have the best approach moving forward. And we also plan to add extra questions if it's participants in the arts and culture and recreation sector, and that's to feed into that strategy later on. Our plan is to, like I mentioned, target 90 to 100 businesses, which should give us a good representation of the business community overall. The focus will be on those who employ people, and as much as we can get district-wide representation of the business community. From there, identify the potential projects. So what have we heard? What is kind of floating to the top in terms of the information that we're getting back for concerns? And then we have a task force focus group session in there as well to validate that. So we had industry feedback, but also looking at, depending on the issues that come forward, let's say workforce is in the top 3, which I would be surprised if it wasn't. We could pull in the provincial organizations like labor and immigration that support, have support programs for businesses for that. And they could help validate and prioritize certain projects that we've identified, add projects, remove projects. That's what that task force is about. And then of course, council input. And then the goal is to have this ready for input into strategic priorities session and add it to the list, our overall list. In terms of budget, we have 25,000 already budgeted for this, and that we should be able to get it done within that budget. And that's
The money's already there.
The money's there, yes, yeah. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Questions, people?
We plan to do it.
Yeah, I believe in the program and I believe in the results of the program. And I love especially where you had referenced the green flag businesses or green flags and red flags. I believe in it, solid work, it's happening, we need to be there, so I'm all over this 100%. And I like the we certainly have projects and files and work on the go in terms of aiding and all that by bringing in that external piece, but also maybe the lens through which they're going to be looking, if you will, in terms of some of those. I'm thinking of some of the businesses in my community and the sectors that they're involved in. And if we can take it outside of you and have somebody, so let's just get on with this conversation. No, I love it. Love it.
Recommendations to approve the scope of work.
Yes, I am.
Seconder?
She loves it, I have to second it.
There you go. You haven't been doing much of that.
No, I'm fine.
Discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
Thank you.
Okay, we're very close to lunchtime. Is lunch out here yet? I haven't heard anything. We'll do the district grants anyway. There's one addition, I believe. Yeah. So District 3, Chester Brass Band Summer Concert, $500.
Our District 3 budget, I think it was 500 from Sharon's budget, so I so moved. I knew, do you want them both together or just mine?
Well, I'm happy with both.
You want to second that?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
We're on that one together.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. District 5, Western Shore Fire Department, $2,500.
Motion to approve.
Seconder? Second. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. District 5, Western Shore Area Improvement, $3,657.
Motion to approve.
Second. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. And the next one, Effie Butler Branch, Chester Region.
Move that we approve on this request, $1,000. Again, if you, a lot of these things are related to the member stay at either end. $1,000 and we revisit it before the deadline.
Okay,
I'll
Second.
second that.
discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Who's dealing with the tour? Oh, you are, tourism. Okay, let's do tourism.
Okay, so there
I'm
were.
ready to quit for a little bit.
So this is the first deadline for tourism council was May 31st, and there are 2 applications in the tourism category that were received. One was from the Chester Yacht Club, and that was related to race week activities, and so they were requesting $5,000. And the other is from the New Rouse Regional Development Society, and that funding is specifically related to the Christmas festival, and they were requesting $1,000. So the overall budget for tourism is $8,000. And so there is sufficient budget to accommodate both of these, but I leave that to council to.
Is that a regular request at 5,000? Is that new this year? Or
No, we typically support race week every year. The amounts have perhaps fluctuated, probably somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000, I would suggest, with it going back and looking exactly. Last year was 3,000. Yes.
So, questions, people?
I want to support, of course.
You think?
And is that the right amount? I mean, just 3 to 5 is the reason for the significant increase?
I'd have to ask Chad, I don't know.
for 5 last year.
So I'm not, yeah, so every year, it's a little bit hard just to go by what was approved. I'm not sure, I could go back, I didn't bring the number with me as to what was asked for each year, because depending on the pressure on the grant, sometimes there isn't enough funding.
Yeah, if we got more
Support.
applications than we had money for.
That's right, then we would have reduced perhaps from the request, so I don't have exactly I don't have that information with me today, what the request was.
We'd like to keep some of the budget for the next round also.
It's typically 6 and 2, is it? 6 and 2, 6,000 and 2,000?
That is what we have done.
Typically, but we don't have to do typically.
No.
Okay, but
But the tourism grant budget is only 8,000.
Yes,
Correct.
So we give 5 for one. That's over half what we budgeted for everybody.
no one else asked.
Is there a deadline on that?
May 31st,
Yeah.
for the first intake.
yeah, there's another round that we usually save some funding for. So.
Yeah, it's typically there's more requests that come in the spring intake than the fall intake, so
And if we don't use it now, does it go forward?
it would carry forward to the October deadline, yes.
But our tourism market is primarily the summer months.
Yeah.
4 and 1 is asking the question.
Well, 4 and 1 item. It's
That leaves us 3,000 for next round. I'll make a motion, Chester Yacht Club 4,000 and the New Rouse 1,000.
You have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Is there lunch here yet?
I don't think it's here yet. They said 12, so it should be here shortly.
Okay, well, it's just that we got,
We could jump to
That's too
other
bad.
new businesses.
Yeah,
Let's
I
keep
think
going.
it's
A couple of minutes of new business.
yeah, we can.
So now we're in the council grants.
Well, we're in the council grants, yes.
And what's the deadline on those?
It's the same as the tourism, so they had a May 31st deadline, and there will be a second intake with the deadline of October the 31st. And so that is perhaps one of the first decisions you may want to make, is we have $25,000 budget. So what portion of that budget would you like to retain for fall application?
Yeah, what's the applications that we currently have? What's the total of that?
24,939.
That's all. We're supposed to remember this.
So there'd be nothing like.
Okay.
No. And typically, again, not that we have. to do
Well, yeah,
this
but
typically,
if we're
but-
gonna save a certain amount, we might as well decide.
Well, that's
Yeah.
right. We should
Yeah.
save. What do we typically save, Chad?
Oh, that's.
20 months.
Theory.
Yeah, it has been a little
50%?
bit different each year. No, when so the same conversation, there typically would be more applications come in the spring than there would be in the fall.
Okay.
I mean, if you save $5,000, that'd be,
Better than nothing.
yeah.
That's what we have to do. So-
What we often do is you're gonna get more
Oh, we
people.
have to.
There will be,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they don't know what.
So do we want to just spend 20? Is that, are we in some kind of agreement on that? Sounds like we are.
I want to ask some questions on some of these, just.
Yeah, but I just want to know, we're only gonna spend 20. So that's the end of that. Somehow our $24,000 worth of requests are gonna turn into 20. Which isn't all that bad. really.
No, it's not. It's been
Yeah.
harder over the years.
And two to perhaps look at early on is, so there are two on there that have not submitted applications, and I think this is common to past years, and that is Christmas Daddies, that council has just decided to make that $100 donation. And the United Way of Lunenburg County, so staff,
Weekday.
casual days, contribute funds, and so that was intended to somewhat be a match to that. So those two, there are no official applications for, so you will see that in here. But so council can determine if they want to support those two organizations at that level or something different.
Well,
We're gonna do that.
Christmas Daddies, we're gonna give them $100, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cheapskates, I think it should.
Okay, just let's go to the United Way too, so we might as well get those two.
Or match employees. 100%.
Well, that is, what-
100%.
yeah. Okay, so there's that
That's a
much.
good
You're keeping
incentive.
track of how much we got spent, if
Yes, I am.
somebody is?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. Regional Society of Vincent St. Paul.
I need more information.
That's all there. So their application their application is included in your package, and St. Vincent de Paul was one that council hadn't supported in previous years, and last year, if you recall, they came in and made a presentation. And after that presentation, the council became more involved in the work that they do locally, and then council decided to support that organization last year. And so I think there was
How much?
$1,000 was provided to them last year. So the request this year is for $2,200.
I just forget what they do, to tell you the truth. I know we had a presentation.
They help people in need.
Yeah.
It's a great organization, and it's municipal.
Yes, I do now. Yeah, come back to me.
Where is it? I don't see it in our package. I'm sorry. Sir.
We have every one of them in
I
our.
know, I'm sure we do. Just give me a minute.
9.2H. To help neighbors in need, volunteers for local organizations, Salvation Army, Chester Basin, New Ross, Chester Lions Club. Volunteer, they local agencies, and they do a lot. I mean, they were here.
Yeah, they
last
help
year.
all kinds of other people.
Just a little further down.
We give them money so they can give it to other people.
So it's down a little
Send
bit.
them.
Those are the tourism ones, right?
It's
So just
there.
a little bit further in.
$1,000.
We did them there from last year. And
Yeah, it's better than a lot. It's better than a lot.
Yeah.
Boys sometimes will indicate when we get to the end of the discussions, and so we talk about back and forth and, how we would base our differential treatments. So I took a page out of Floyd's book from years before, and I looked at if we did everything 50%, and we're still ahead of the game, or if we did everything 75%, and we're still under the 20,000. So once we get down to the bottom of this, we have to decide based on who we're giving more of their percentages to. So I'm not rushing the discussion.
No, but we need to do
We
something.
need to base it on fairness, so, yeah. So if we gave everybody, I'm not saying we are, because I'd love to talk about these and wrangle them, every one of them. 75% of their asks, it totals, I think, somebody else would have to do the calculation, $17,750. So I might be wrong on that. No, I mean, 100% to the other two that we just talked about, of course, but.
Yeah.
But again, if you're gonna start picking and choosing,
Well, I love the Chester Brass Band. I'm just gonna mention it because we talked about it and we already have some money committed because we were gonna give them $1,000 from here. That was sort of the conversation that we had when we went down
yeah,
there.
but I didn't know the full slate of applications.
No,
And I'm seeing them today, right? So,
I'll let you down one at a time, but.
good, excellent.
What's everybody else want to do?
No, one at a time. One at a
Okay.
time. You,
Then we're still on to St. Vincent de Paul. What are we giving them?
I know, I move $1,000.
That's what I would go.
Yep.
Okay.
Done.
Second, move
Are
second.
we moving them?
No.
Oh, no, okay,
Okay.
okay, we're just gonna say $1,000. Yeah. Okay,
Chester Brass Band.
Chester Brass Band. Asking for 1,000.
I think we should give them a full.
You
$1,000,
go.
I think we did that.
They do a
once.
good job
Yeah.
every summer.
Have you ever been to Homeless Bell?
Okay, we're not
No,
moving.
not moving?
no.
No, I just want some kind of consensus.
There's still a discussion.
I agree.
Okay,
Okay, great.
Chester Farmers Artisan Market. They want 2,000.
What did they get last year?
No.
Is this new?
And then we give them 1,500.
It was something close to that.
Sorry.
Yeah, so they didn't get funding through council last year. I believe they got had a district grant, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. yeah.
So the $2,000, I have my application, I've gone through it, I know, it's for, is it for stuff?
It's for equipment.
It's for equipment
Related, yeah.
that will carry forward to
Other
make
years.
a stronger market each year, or not the stronger market, but a good investment, yeah.
I think we should not mark down 1,500 for now and then We'll see how. it goes.
15 for now?
Keep it open for revisiting.
Yeah, well, let's
So
get
that all this stuff is gonna be.
well, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, New Ross Farmers Market,
They're replacing their entrance booth to the fairgrounds.
1,500 for now.
I think.
New Ross Summer Evening Market.
That's a completely new thing, I read it.
I don't know what that is.
It's a completely new event.
It's an unregistered organization just yet, which is still makes them an eligible applicant to our council stream. But because of event insurance, and it's becoming dicier, the Legion, because they're doing the liquor license piece as part of the summer market, because the summer market will be music, local artisans like Scotian Arms, the blacksmith, he'll be there. We have probably 40 vendors that are going to be set up under the covered structure selling their items. That's why in brackets it says Legion, because the Legion was the applicant for the insurance purposes, because I assume all of our events are well covered with event insurance. I really hope so. That's part of maybe something we need to add to our list for due diligence to make sure that all of our events have proper event insurance.
But would that be okay? They're asking in 2 places.
No, they're not asking. The Legion's not asking. It's an organization. The New Ross Summer Evening Market as an event organization, and you can see there the list of their directors that they are currently in the process of registering through Registry Joint Stocks.
Because they don't have a bank account yet, and so the funding will go through the Legion until such time they have that.
Which, as long as there's a paper trail of checks to be written, from what I understand over the years here sitting at council for the last few years, it's the traceability and the proper account to write a check to.
But it is brand new, right?
It is, oh
Yes.
yes, no, it's brand new.
That's what I thought.
It's a bit of a model after the New Ross 200th anniversary, and Sharon, I think you were there on the Friday night when we had the night market in 16. And Floyd, you might have been in there, I'm not sure. I don't think the budget this year will allow us to have the Cirque du Soleil performers, but we may have Cirque du Soleil sometime.
Yeah,
Okay.
their budget's 26 and they were asking for 12, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we gotta come up with something.
Limit there, go.
I was gonna say $500.
How much?
$500.
500.
No, I'd say 1,000
750.
Bingo.
for now, and we'll revisit it like the other ones.
What do you do? You gotta get somewhere.
Yep, absolutely. Got a big.
Our health center.
I know.
Okay, last year. Did we get them last year?
$5,000 last year.
See,
Let's forget what this
they were
one's
the only,
for.
they were the only applicant.
Chairs, desks.
Yeah, so this was, so they had submitted a major project application that we denied early on. And so that was, so they had a $50,000 project for a renovation of some of their flex room space. So they're continuing with that project, and what they're looking for council support is for some furniture and things to go along with the walk-in clinic portion. And so as it's outlined in the application, is that portion is portion of their operation that isn't funded through some of the government funding that comes in for the other portion of the services that they provide. So, because I know that was a question that council had before, is just the funding and the source of funding for the various elements of our house. Yeah, and so as is outlined in the application, is that this portion, the walk-in clinic portion, is not covered under that provincial funding. So that so anyway, that was how it was outlined and presented as part of the application to council.
So just to answer Derek, in terms of last year, they were the only applicant under the second intake in October, and we had set aside 5,000. They applied for 5, we gave them 5 because that was our budget. So we
And
had
that's
it
the only
available.
person that.
So
Well, the walk-in clinics are really super.
3,000?
Huh?
3,000 at this point?
Well, I mean, that's a good place to start.
We can remember revisit some of this.
it's.
No, they don't have to.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 3 for now. Yeah. St. Stephen's Anglican Parish Musical Friends.
Full 5,000.
They had intended to come in and make a
I
presentation to
know,
council last week, and they
we
weren't
don't
able
even
to.
have to ask what.
No, all these groups do great work.
Yeah.
All these groups crews do great work, every one of them.
Isn't that one of the
Are
best
they,
programs?
who's the applicant? Are they an eligible applicant where we don't do religion? I looked at the mandate, I'm surprised to see that on there.
So the way that we have handled them in the past is that they fall under the St. Stephen's Anglican Parish. So that is the host organization, and so council made a decision early on when they first started that traditionally churches are not eligible.
Okay,
because-
this is
Unless it's
open to
a
the
broader
public.
community.
Broader community.
Yeah, so this is a special
Yeah.
program that they offer to the
Yeah.
community that doesn't have any affiliation with the church, more so
Yeah.
than, using the facility and.
And they do it all across the municipality.
Sure, you know.
I know.
It's for youth as well, which really,
I
Big
gotta
time,
find,
big time for you.
all right, let's carry on.
How much? What was it?
Well, he wants to leave 5 in
I want to
there.
leave the full 5 in for now, but
Yeah.
we can discuss it. see what
Yeah,
we-
okay, we'll leave it there for now. Hubbard's Area Lions Club.
The only request my area, and they're only asking for half the money, and I'm gonna ask to leave 4 marker, or 3,000.
3,000?
3,000.
3,000, just leave it at even.
If anyone read it for container, they're gonna try to do it cheaper instead of building a
They've already
building.
bought it, right?
If they've got that, because they're gonna build a building and it's so costly, they got a container instead.
Community Hall, Royal Canadian Legion, New Ross. What is this one for?
Predominantly their Canada Day celebrations.
Oh, okay.
I looked at their budget. And seriously, $3,500 fireworks. And we've got district grants and all that, but most of us are doing that with, I just think it's a big request.
Sorry, I looked at the budget once, I have looked at it again, what did you say for 3,500?
It's entertainment 600, fireworks 35, decorations 150, cake 100, wages 155, license 62, prizes and games 250, parades and balloons 75 and 50, budget of $5,000. And I don't have a problem helping with some of the other stuff, but
I was just picking up on the fireworks, because you had said fireworks for 35, I don't know what fireworks cost, I don't turn out fireworks myself personally.
It's not cheap, but it depends on how much fireworks you want to buy.
But Adela, I think you were in New Ross for the last set of, or your likewise, and you commented to me, I think that it was probably the most impressive.
Yeah, it was very impressive.
Yeah, so I don't know what fireworks go for.
I thought we were doing a lot of that stuff through our district stuff.
So
these
do I.
days.
Yeah, for those locals.
Well, you know what, they're an eligible applicant.
It doesn't mean. we
Last
do.
year, no, that's right.
No, but
That's
you can
right.
top it up.
yeah.
That's right, exactly. And that's what I did last year because I looked at Legion and Remembrance Day. But again, they're an eligible applicant. It's not necessarily a given that we're gonna do it through district grants. We do.
Well,
But
I'm
you'd
not
have to
mad at them
explain to
for-
me why they would not be an eligible applicant and be fairly considered under this stream of grants.
Okay, consider it zero.
$1,000.
$1,000, is
Yeah.
that what we're putting in? Right?
1,100.
Okay, now tell me how much money we just spent.
$19,050.
Too much.
Well, $19,050 and we agreed to spend 20.
Well, there you go.
There.
We did pretty good.
19,050.
Somebody want to move, we approve them all?
Some,
Second? Discussion? All those in favor?
I never thought those.
Opposed, motion carried.
Pizza's here. And actually, there was an added bonus to this discussion I just discovered.
That was it, Andre.
Don't call me.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been Andre.
Yes,
Yeah, it wasn't.
yes, he seconded.
You didn't second that.
I think I'm gonna.
We had a weak moment.
I was young.
Okay, people, I don't care if lunch is out there, if it's not out there, we're on,
It is.
we're online.